Guys, I'd like to welcome everybody to this episode of the Franchise Advisory Board. I've got a great guest with me. He's been on before, but there's a lot of stuff we got to cover that's super pertinent to what Jason McReynolds is going to be able to talk to us about. Jason's the CEO, co-founder of an organization, a technology platform called FranMetrics. If you don't know who they are, you should probably figure it out. But after today, you're going to realize why I've got Jason on talking about these topics today. He's been in franchising for what, 25 years now. He doesn't look like it, guys. He didn't start when he wasn't five when he started. I'll just give you that hint. But and he's the FranMetrics has been around almost 7 years now. So Jason, tell us a little bit more about you, your experience in franchising, and also FranMetrics, so they kind of get an idea of why should I trust this guy I've maybe never met before to talk to me about data.
Yeah. So first off, I've been in franchising about 25 years, and as somebody who was a franchisor themselves and been part of several franchise organizations, my biggest challenge was collecting and analyzing data and getting franchise owners the support they needed based on their performance. And they'd send in their financials only if they were struggling, or we would beg them, and it was, hey, it's in the franchise agreement. And we just noticed, or I in particularly noticed, that we would have problems that we weren't aware of until it was too late. And this is no way to run a business or a franchise system. We have all these projections, we have all these analytics on how we're doing stuff. We've set up what we think a store should do or a unit should do, but what are we doing to actually make sure that they're meeting their stages of development and they're hitting those points? Because the data behind it tells a story, and everybody knows numbers are important, but so many franchise systems didn't know the numbers and we didn't. And so I was like, this has got to be solved, and it's got to be done in the right way. So that's kind of the story, and it's been evolving, and it's probably will be like any technology thing, but there's no excuse not to have data anymore. There's just no excuse not to have the data in a way that's digestible and easy to understand to help support your franchises.
Yeah, no excuses. No hashtag no excuses. So
yes.
Yeah. In fact, let's talk about that for a minute. So guys, what we're going to talk about today, just to give you a quick overview, we're going to talk about what's changing on the data requirements landscape in franchising. What's changing on, or what should you be paying attention to? What metrics should you be tracking? What do you need to be tracking? How can you manipulate and look at data in a way that's going to give you insights to help you run your franchise better? Like some of these things, Jason's kind of a wizard when it comes to this. So I thought it'd be good to have him come on and be the expert to talk about this, because we talk about marketing a lot. We talk about sales strategy a lot. We talk about technology a lot. And right now, especially as a lot of people are getting ready to start compiling data and prepping FDDs, right? This is a good time to be thinking about the data points that are critical to run your business. So Jason, tell us a little bit as we get started here about what are some of the trends that are shifting, the things that are changing inside of what's needed around data in franchising?
Yeah, so the first thing that's changing is, well, some on how franchisors are looking and how they are specifically collecting the data, how they're looking at data, but then also on the regulation side, there's also rumors, and then found out truth, that the FTC was actually requiring franchisors to have an item 19 for their disclosure. They didn't do that, but the fact that they were considering it, because they're, listen, as a franchisor, you should know the performance of your franchisees, and you should be telling people what they are. Yeah. And ironically, good franchisors want an item 19. It's a sales tool. So, the only reason a franchisor doesn't have that the data they need is either one, they're embarrassed by it. Okay, that's number one. And then everybody else is, they just don't have the numbers they need, or they haven't done the work they did to collect it. But keep in mind, the fact that it could be mandatory is going to put you in a world of hurt. Imagine not being able to create an FDD or sell another franchise because you don't have your data. Now, they didn't do that, but my gosh, the fact that they thought they could even require that, when I talked to so many systems that don't even know how their franchisees are performing or their profitability.
Mhm.
But more specifically to what they need to collect and what they need to see. I mean, you need to know profitability metrics. You need to know that they're successful, that they're going to stay operational. I mean, you can't be successful in franchising if you're losing units. You have to have a success rate. That's the first thing anybody reviewing an FDD is going to see. And how many units have closed because they haven't made money, and you weren't there to support them because they didn't tell you, because they were mad, or they saw other people were doing good, so they just didn't want to bug you, whatever that reason is. But there's no excuse that you don't know those numbers. You have every right to know how well they're doing. But you also want to be looking at leading indicators, things that will show if they're going to be profitable, things like reviews or how efficiency standards, like if you're in a restaurant, service speed times, like how quick is the food coming out. I mean, there was a statistics that Domino's did back 20 years ago that showed if they could deliver a pizza in less than 25 minutes, that the sales of those particular units would double compared to those that couldn't get the deliveries out in time.
Yeah.
That's a leading indicator that they could track to know, to predict if a unit's going to be successful, because the customers from those places would order twice as much or go somewhere else based on their performance. So those are the ways that we need to look. So you need to look at the leading indicators, and then the lagging indicators, which are like the profitability. You got to look at both. And you got to know what they are, for one, and they're industry specific, right? So what is it about a particular, what particular in your industry or made you successful before you were a franchise? What made your company successful? What was that? How do we put a number on it? And then how do we track that for the franchise owner, right? That's all. Doesn't sound that hard. And yet so many franchise systems don't even come close to doing it, or I talk to them every day. So it's why I built this, but it's still frustrating to see that that they haven't got on board on this, because they have to. They're responsible for making these franchisees successful and profitable. That's their job, in my opinion.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. I want to go back to something you said a few minutes ago about not knowing because franchisees were afraid to share data, or they were mad because they weren't being successful, or like the funny thing about data, and correct me if I'm wrong with this, and maybe a big misconception about data in the franchising community is that the intention of the franchisor asking for data is so they can kind of big brother and pry inside of the business of a franchisee. And yet it's actually the opposite. I mean, yeah, franchisors, they want to know what's going on in the unit, but it's not because they want to like get up in your business. Part of it is because you're contractually obligated as a franchisee to do certain things, and the data is a way to track that. But the other part of it is, if they don't have the metrics to see what's happening in your unit, they can't coach you and help you succeed. They have to know because they want you to succeed almost as bad as you want to succeed, right? As a franchisee. And it's crazy that there's this weird tension between Z's and Zors with respect to data.
Well, it's not just data. I mean, it's kind of weird to be talking about nerdy stuff like numbers and then make a 180 and talk about culture. And this is a culture issue because, yes, it's there with the numbers, but it's also there when you do your routine evaluation or field visit, and you show up with a notepad and tell them their bathroom's dirty. You really sound like big brother then. So I talk to franchisors all the time, and I always, the starting point and the end point is, we're here to make sure you're as successful as we could possibly be. We're not here to find out your bathrooms are dirty. We're here to find out what you need from us. And we're here to tell you what we see that you might be able to improve on, so you will make more money, so you will get a bigger return on your investment. That's why we're looking at your numbers. And if the conversations you have with prospective franchisees and then franchisees when they're in our operation, all start from that point, is we're all rowing the same direction. We all have the same goals. We all want you to make the most amount of money that you can possibly make. And that's why we're doing this. Then those things come naturally. But the culture is what defines if franchise owners are going to buy into this system of sharing the data, or for, or the routine visits of like making sure the place is all clean and nice, so they see a false representation of how you're operating because they're just there to pacify the franchisor. No, like a good franchise owner would like it to see how it normally runs and get the feedback and make improvements. So, sorry, a tangent there, but I talk to franchisors that come in there with the clipboard and like, this dirty, didn't do this right, didn't do that. I mean, yeah, those people are not going to share the numbers. They're like, anytime they can push back on the franchise, they're going to do it. Right?
Yeah, 100%. Well, and let's rewind to something you said a minute ago. I was writing it down because it was good. I'm flashing my pen around here like it's a magic wand. So numbers issues or data issues are really just the spawn of culture issues. I really like the way you said that. I've never heard anyone frame it that way, but it's 100% true. It goes back to start with why, right? Simon, right? A cynic who talked about that. But if they don't understand the why behind what you're doing, then you're doing it all wrong. And if that's the core of your value,
you're not communicating the why to them. I mean, that's the communication and the disconnect between So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
There's no sorry. I mean, I think you nailed something I wanted to come back to and make sure everyone was paying attention, because if you're having that issue where your franchisees don't want to give you data, and I know plenty of even my clients where the data is very visible about sales performance and proposals out and closed deals and incoming leads and conversion rates and all that kind of stuff where we can really own data and share it upstream. Even in that environment, I know people that are they're wary about that, and it's because there isn't a culture. One, there's not a culture of like synergy between the Zor and the Z. Like, hey, we're here to help you succeed, right? That's a great cultural framework. The other part of it is they're not in it to help each other succeed. And when you start to do things like you do with benchmarking and comparative analysis, and how am I doing against people in my region and my size, my tenure, until people start to be able to see that data, they don't understand how valuable it is. And how important it is for them to share that data so they can say, oh, of all the people in the Chicagoland area, I'm number 2 right now in these 3 categories, but I'm number 57 in this one. Holy cow. Like, I know what I can do to help my business to thrive. It's like, that's super valuable, but they have to be on board to share the data.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, Jason, about that, because we were going to talk about this later, but this topic's relevant right now. Yes. Franchisor. So speak to me like I'm a franchisor that I've got a bunch of cats I've got to wrangle. They don't want to share their data. How do I convince my franchisees that this is really valuable to them, to make sure their data is coming up to corporate so we can interpret it and share it?
Yeah, so we're talking the traditional, like, how do I get the buy-in from the franchise owners? And first off, they need to see value. All right, they're not going to, and rightfully so. Mm-hmm. They're going to be sharing their data, and they're going to be doing something that they've not normally seen. Mm-hmm. For me specifically, and for me, well, not me, but for FranMetrics specifically, I say, listen, we're going to have all your data in a way that matters, that helps us support you, that allows you to actually see how you're doing, where you can actually see how you're benchmarking and ranking. Your like what if scenarios, like what if our system has the ability to say, what if I had the same labor of everybody in my state as the same percentage, how much more money would I have made if I was below the median? What if I had the median, or what if I had the median cost of goods sold? There's a lot of value in there. But another thing is, every franchise agreement ever written requires that financials be sent on certain time periods regardless. And usually that's in the form of a spreadsheet or a PDF or a mail. And like, I would also, and again, this is specific to us, it's like, hey, you sign up with this system, this will satisfy all your reporting agreements because we have all your data, in fact, in a better format than we had it before. And now you don't have to do this. And then there's always the other way, which is like, it's in our franchise agreement. When you renew, you're going to have to do it anyway. And understand that this is why we're doing it. It's so we can better support you. Like, we want to know because we need to know. We need to know that you're doing well, and we need to, and this is a support tool. This is a support mechanism that we put in place. and we put up our money for sometimes that we, because we see the value in the data. And you know, it's driven, business is driven by data, or it should be.
Yeah.
Decisions. Yeah. Hopefully this helps you make better decisions about your business. Again, we're here to help you succeed.
Yeah.
Same mindset. Yeah.
Same mindset. Yeah. Same culture, right?
Yeah.
There are two things that you shared. I want to circle back to one of these. One is there were, in most cases, one, if in if your franchise agreement does not include the requirement to share data in a digital format, that's, or I think everyone should be including that. Spreadsheet, financials, whatever, but you should include, or also like a direct API connection, direct data connection,
Yes.
just to make sure it's crystal clear that that's how it should or could work, even if you're not doing it today, even if you're not working with Jason, you're not working with me, it doesn't matter.
Absolutely. You need to set yourself up to make this to be able to do this and do it without having to go one at a time to your franchise owners saying, hey, guess what, we need to modify the agreement, or you need to sign this like sidebar agreement, because that's tough. And yeah, and so many disclosure documents unfortunately are really copy and paste, or there's just some really good franchise attorneys that have but don't understand how technology, that this doesn't cover the technology thing. And so it's not even a dig on them, but it's just, they have old, they just, when it comes to technology, the stuff updates crazy. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that I, yeah.
Well, and that was the second thing I wanted to talk about here, which you kind of hinted at, but I want to really highlight it. When you're a franchisor and you're trying to work with franchisees and encourage them to share data, right? One of the key things that because a lot of them are still manually sending things, or you're manually accessing their QuickBooks or whatever you're doing, analyzing P&Ls, heaven help you. But a lot, you're still
that never works unless you're less than 10 units, but okay.
Yeah, exactly, right. Well, that's the problem. Now it becomes a full-time job. You get 40 units. Now you got a P&L analyzer who's working half the month just going through the data, and then manually
that doesn't happen. Nobody.
Yeah, no one wins there. So the other part, though, is the franchisees have to do freaking work to get you data. So if you help them under, one of the arguments is, we're going to cut out all of this manual stuff that you were doing to get us data, and we're just going to plug into systems.
Right.
That's a powerful argument. As a Zor, like, how am I helping you today? I'm saving you time and money. I'm giving now, and I'm also giving you visualization and normative data, so you can analyze how you're doing against your peers, and maybe see areas where you can work on your business before I even see that and come coach you. But I will see it, and I will coach you because I care about your success. I mean, saving time and money, that's a big deal to them. And so I just wanted to highlight that piece that you'd kind of hinted at.
Absolutely.
Jason, let's talk. So a couple of other things I wanted to make sure we picked your brain about today. One of which, and you started going down a list a few minutes ago of like, what data should you be paying attention to as a Zor, a franchise system owner? Do you mind sharing that? Is a couple of the key metrics. You talked about profitability. You talked about unit success, but if we dig into the unit level details, what are other things that you should be tracking? And even you talked about the like food services, and let's talk about even service oriented businesses. There are a couple of key metrics they should be tracking and paying attention to. What would you do?
Yeah, I mean, so to go to a couple ones, so service or home service industry business or restaurant business, or where people go on to review, to go on to look at reviews to see if they want to use you or not, your net promoter score is a huge KPI. It's the number of people promoting you versus the number of people retracting from you. Basically, your top review, your people saying you're great divided by the people saying you're crap. That's a big one. And those are, I talked about the leading indicators. Those are typically very good leading indicators if you have the data for that. That's a big one. Okay, so that's a big one. And then other ones, like if you're in a gym or home health kind of things, conversion rates, like trial memberships, like how many people came in to try out and then and what percentage of those people turned out to actually sign up a membership, right? Those are huge leading indicators. So most of the profitability ones are really obvious, right? They just like, did I make money? But these are all the leading indicators are all very, as you noticed, very specific to the industry you're in, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so estimates that have turned into
Mhm.
quotes that have turned into sales,
Yeah.
those kinds of things that can be done in, like, most of these are percentages. Like
Mhm.
these are always looked at of like the opportunity, the opportunity to like the close to the dollars, right? Like how much money was there to how much did I get out of that? Like how, and that just shows you how well those particular units are communicating with their clients or customers to get them to move forward to the next stage. I mean, it's a sales thing. Like we're analyzing the performance of how we're, once we get that in, and also analyzing marketing, right? How well is our marketing
Yeah.
per dollar spent? Like per each dollar, how much did we get? And these are things that typically people look at in the abstract, or like generally like, oh yeah, we're this ad's doing great or that ad's doing great, but they don't necessarily look at it at a unit level. So if you can drill down into the unit level and see that's a coachable thing, right? We can say, okay, this is a particular thing that's either, and maybe it's geographical. Maybe you might find out something's working in one place based on
Mhm.
the demographics or something. So it's all good things to know, right? So there's the numbers will tell you what help you make those decisions.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you mentioned a few before, and I just want to recap them for the food service
Oh
franchisors.
yeah,
But we talked about delivery time if you got a delivery business.
good to speak to.
Yeah, and there are two or three that you mentioned there. I know the cost of food, cost of labor are a
Oh
couple of
yeah, so
big ones.
so yeah, restaurants, your food costs and your labor costs are real big. Those are killers.
Mhm. Yeah.
Retail cost of goods sold, and then if you like, some like home service stuff, labor is a real big deal. It's always your costs are I mean, they are a leading indicator in a way because they're showing how well the unit's operating, and those things won't go away. Those are things, again, we look at as a percentage. So it's something that revenue doesn't fix. If your costs are almost taking away all your revenue, then you double your revenue and you're still, it's not really helping if you're underwater after your variable costs. And I mean,
Yeah.
I can't go down that whole rabbit hole, but you should know how those things work, how to isolate variable and fixed costs, and how to make sure that if the variable costs aren't in line, uh, the rest of the stuff won't matter.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah,
just
pretty much like same thing with the fixed costs, right? I mean, that's
for
one of the
sure.
things. Yeah, I mean, being able to, and do you have any idea as a franchisee what your fixed cost ratio is versus your variable cost versus everybody else in your region or everybody else has been in business with the franchise for the same amount of time? Like that sort of stuff can be really insightful where you didn't realize, like you thought you were doing pretty well, and then you looked and said, "Oh, I'm actually underperforming dramatically on my labor cost management. I'm going to call a couple of the boys and find out what they're doing to manage that down because now you can see how you compare. That kind of data is really powerful. At least I think so.
I, I definitely think so.
Yeah.
That's where my whole
Yeah.
started a whole company because I thought so.
Yeah. So preaching to the choir there. Hey,
Yeah.
so let's talk. So we've kind of hinted at this, but I want to circle back to this concept of the now. So what? So now the franchisor has data. They have data, and how do they use it? Like what should the franchisor be doing with the data? What behavior should they have around now? This hopefully they're using something like FranMetrics, this plethora of new insights. Like how should they be engaging with those insights? What should they be monitoring? And then how should they approach the franchisees? Now they've got these insights about corrective behavior, coaching, things like that.
Right. So the franchisor can use this data for multiple ways. The easy one, obviously, is disclosure stuff.
Yeah.
Important, but it's not that's not complicated. The second is to actually analyze how their company is doing as a whole, because now we have roll-up data for all of our points. So we can see overall trends and costs and results without having to rely on just the company-owned units or what you just kind of generally see or some other report. You can actually see how your company's, like, you can see like, oh shoot, we're this is not a good trend, we need to get on top of this. We're slowly going off a hill here, but it's also because we have unlimited segmentation. It also can help them decide where to open where the new units are, where they can find out like multi-unit operators seem to be outperforming hands-on operators, or these people in these states, or this, because you can literally segment the franchised units and company-owned units and actually run reports, side by side, like let's just look at these or let's look at those. So you can actually, it'll actually tell you where population density, right? You can actually go and say, we know this is the kind of town that we're succeeding in better based on this data. And then the last one, of course, is, okay, we've identified a franchise that has this particular issue. And by the way, our system has it to where we have a descending KPI report. So we don't go into, we can go into an individual unit's scorecard and see how they benchmark and rank everybody. But as a franchisor, I can literally go in and look at a KPI for a month, and I can see the top performer from a result of the KPI all the way to the bottom. So I know who I need to identify. And so a lot of our clients will just follow me down this path. They'll look at the descending KPI report. They will see somebody with the worst labor, the worst two at the labor. They will go into our break-even analysis tool, and they will say, which is a report that shows up that says, what if I had the median labor of all units in my state, right? You can drill down that much because, again, somebody in New York probably could say, well, yeah, I'm in New York, my labor's high. But we can actually drill down into the state and everything. And the franchisor can take a screenshot or share or get on a meeting with them and say, look, you could have saved $5,225 if you'd have just had the median result of everybody in your state. If we can fix this, you're going to make a lot more money. And we're here to support you. And that took no time at all. Where before, imagine not having the data. Like, not only would you not know to even have that conversation, even if you would, it's typically just a knee-jerk reaction that your labor's too high. And it's a real vague thing. You need to get your labor in control. Like, here, I have the exact dollar amounts based on real data from all reporting units, and an actual number you could have made if you'd had your worst case, if you'd fixed your biggest problem and just put it, don't have the best. This is just if you got in the median. And so that's how you do it. And I mean, how you communicate it and say it goes back to the culture thing. But those are the conversations that you need to have, and you need to have it some kind of way. And if they're open to looking into it, and again, you can put them in conversation with somebody who has the best labor, and say, hey, let's talk to them. They're in the same situation as you are, in the same state or whatever, and they are obviously figured something out. So yeah.
So I couldn't agree with you more on that one, Jason. Where we see it from our perspective is on the sales funnel, right? The lead conversion, the proposals to close, the maybe even anyway, lead conversion by source kind of data. It's really powerful when you can go to them and say, hey, Steve, like, business is going pretty well. We appreciate that you're working hard. We can see you're working maybe a little harder than everybody else without the same results. Like, this is now, like, when you start talking about success managers or coaches or field managers, regional rent managers, whatever you call them in your system, if you don't empower them with data, they can't have a very tactical discussion that gets right to the core of the issue and can be validated. There's a lot of hunch work going on, or they've got to spend an hour or two on the phone with a franchise owner. Neither one of them has that much time just to figure out what the problem might be. So then they can start trying to talk about how to resolve the problem that they think they might be having. Like, that's actually the world I'd say most of the franchise manage, like success and coaching managers.
The franchise business coaches, I mean, you can see that being done really horribly, and it's not because their role is so important, but you got to see things from the franchise owner's perspective. They're in their business every day, 5 days a week, and somebody jumps on the phone and tell them how to run their business. And if you don't have specific knowledge of what their issues they're facing and specific ways to fix that, you have a real problem of getting a lot of resentment built up that some person that's on your payroll is telling them how to run their business they do every day. If you can't really get to the point real quickly and have real specific things to show them about where they can make, quick, easy improvements to solve whatever it is. And if you don't know your numbers and you don't know what those problems are, and you're just going back and forth, they'll feel like you're wasting their time. Yeah, understandably so. Like, they're calling me saying, hey, what, let's look at this, let me look at that. Like, I look at this every day. I don't,
I don't need some kid to come and tell me how to do it.
Yeah.
No, but it's to be fair, they're not wrong. And also I think about, kind of the McDonald's principle, right? Where we're going to try to define every role so that anybody can come in and do any job. Well, let's talk about a franchise business coach. That's a job it's a kind of hellish sometimes, because they aren't given the tools and even the training. And you need 20 years of experience running businesses to be a good franchise business coach in some systems, because they don't have this type of data. Now take away that problem. Now you've got benchmarking and dashboarding data, and you can train them how to look for specific reports and how to find specific insights, and now lead with insights when they go and talk to the franchise owner. And now that whole you versus us, them, not any idea how my business runs goes away, because you're leading with insights when you come. And you can have a 20-year-old doing that with the proper training and the proper mentality and culture. And even a veteran seasoned business owner is going to say, wow, thanks for that insight. I didn't know that was going on. I hadn't noticed that yet. So I think it levels the playing field and makes it a very scalable business model to coach franchises. And frankly, you probably need fewer bodies, because now you're way more efficient. Now they're just focusing on the problems and communicating the problems they're seeing or the successes versus trying to find them first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jason, last question I want to ask you. So we've talked about why we need data. We've talked about the types of data we need. We've talked about how to interpret it and share the data with franchisees, how to get them to buy into sharing the data with you. A lot of people over the years have had this trend of thinking about technology and data as it's got to be one tool to rule everything. It's got to be a single technology set, or else I won't be able to see my data. But my impression has been that trend has changed a lot now. That people have stopped saying I need one tool that does everything, and they started finding the right tool for the job across the board. What do you see in there? Since you're amalgamating and pulling data from all over the place, I'm guessing you got a pretty good insight into that. What are you seeing as a trend there?
Yeah, so I would agree. So everybody was like, login fatigue, and we're like, we got to go to this system and do that system. Like, somebody's offering me this thing that'll do everything. Well, those systems tend to be overly complex, and they were built for everybody to do everything. And you will find that it'll slow down operations, or you're going to have certain steps you need to take that are unnecessary for your specific thing. And you're working with a package or a company that is not focused on what you're doing. So, we talked about restaurants. If I built a POS system to run your restaurant that tracks how long an order has been taken to make and the delivery time, we talked about those specific things. Like, if I'm talking to a company that's trying to track that and then also do bookkeeping or some other CRM management, there's just no way that the system that's designed to do everything is going to do what I need to run in my restaurant. So the thing is that the trend I see is that technologies now communicate with each other better. API technology, and just being able to share and get the data in the systems you need to make those systems work, and buying the right thing to make that business the most, operate the most efficiently is what's important. And there might be more than one tool, and that's as long as those tools run most efficiently for their purpose. I do think there is still login fatigue, and so I'm not saying that that we just throw a bunch of things at it, especially at the franchise owner, because I think franchise owners are they're not sitting in front of a desk on a computer all day. A franchisor is more likely to utilize multiple systems to do their duties. than a franchisee. So that's an important tool. But I agree with you 100%. Like just because somebody does a lot of stuff doesn't mean they do a lot of stuff well in a way that's going to make your business more efficient. So yeah, I see the same trend as you 100%.
Yeah, and franchising complicates it, right? Because there's so many systems out there that are good that just don't work in franchising. Look at pretty much every CRM out there
Yeah.
that wasn't designed for it. Like I know people that have spent 7 figures trying to make some of the big box CRMs work in franchising, and they're hunting for new platforms now.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being the guy that said, "Yeah, I signed us up for Salesforce, and now I am going to find something else after spending 750 grand trying to make it work"? Like I don't want to be that guy. That guy's looking for a new job. So. But it's not just CRMs. I see it all over now, where
Oh, yeah.
there's that myth of the one tool, and now but everyone said, oh, but you can't be this and that and an LMS and a this and a financial management system and a CRM, and like all of a sudden that myth started to fall apart for everyone, and like it doesn't work. This is bad. But like I'd rather use a system like a best of breed LMS instead of trying to buy a system that also has one bolted on.
Well, as any business person knows, like having a focus and I mean, I could speak to data better than most and benchmarking. And like I had a vision with what we were trying to accomplish here the same way as you guys did. And I know that if some big company even came and tried to go like thought about it for 2 minutes and thought they could do it, they couldn't do it. Not to the degree we can, because I wake up every day going, how can I make the data work for my clients in the franchise space specifically, because I'm franchising. And how does that benefit franchising? Now, can they make something work? Yeah, but is it going to be efficient and the right data in the right time in the right place? Is it going to engage with franchisees the ways our system does? No, I just don't think it will.
It won't. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
you hit it on the head though. You think about what you do, what we do, like the people that are like laser focused on the franchising industry with their tech and maybe even like a specific vertical or a specific space. That's all we wake up thinking about that, daydreaming about this, talking to people about going to conferences to learn more about how to make this thing work better. So that's why I mean tons of our partners, including FranMetrics, I'm always impressed with what people do with their techs. I'm like, wow, that is perfect custom fit for what all these people need. Then the question is like, how do we make sure they figure it out and then start tying all this stuff together? So I love it. Yeah, Jason McReynolds, guys. What's the best way for people to find you, Jason, if they want to follow up after with questions or get in touch with you?
Yeah, so franmetrics.net or Jason at franmetrics.net. Real simple, straightforward. I'm on LinkedIn. You email me, I'll be right back to you. And yeah, if
Great.
this is something that works, I'd love to give you a demo.
Yeah, and Jason, guys, FranMetrics is FranMetrics. It's not an X, just to make sure you get that right. If you're gonna, and it's a .net, not a .com. So take note, guys. Thanks so much for listening in, Jason. Thanks for all your insights today. Seriously, good stuff. I really appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Dave. Been a pleasure.